And roll.
Alright. Hi everyone, welcome to Demarion's weapons check class. I am Squire Arshank. I'm going to be working with you on projectiles today. Now, one of the first things you're going to see, start with the easiest stuff, everyone sees javelins. These can be anywhere from 4 to 7 feet long in Belegarth, and they can flex no more than 90 degrees. So one of the things you're going to see when we check is this wiggle. And you can't just sit here and wiggle it back and forth and says, oh no, this fails for flex. Because that's more your risk than anything else. But you can sit here and you can wiggle it. And you'll see the standard size templates. This could never pass through the 2.5-inch hole. You're going to see very little variances on these because as vague as the rules are, this is a really simple object. There's not a whole lot going on here. The whole thing needs to be padded. It must conform to all the rules of a spear because it can be used melee-wise. You sit here and poke someone, but the moment it leaves your hand, that's when it can hit someone in the face. Or equivalent to. For javelins specifically and especially, they will always have a yellow tip in Belegarth. So you'll be able to see that this is not just a spear, but it is classified technically as a javelin. Oh, one of my favorite things is another projectile called the rock. So these can have 0 core in them whatsoever. And one of the ways you're going to check it is just squish it in your hand. But if it's a weapon and it's a projectile, that means it can hit someone in the face, right? So what happens if I put it into his face? Does that mean I can just sit here and start wailing on him? Because there's a projectile in between us, that makes it safe, right? No? Why not?
Because the force is still coming from your fist, not the rock.
It's a melee attack, not a projectile attack.
There you go. You're both right. Melee and the force. Where's it coming from?
Ranged weapon only.
Say it again?
Ranged weapon only.
Ranged weapon only. And because these are so small, I can launch it from back here. Because this is going to travel, the moment it exits my hand, the distance from my hand to the face. That also means, if I'm really good at practicing, I launch it right from here. And that's still legal, but I have to let go of it. So for things like weapons check, you'll see that he's hitting himself on the head with it. There's no core, there's nothing, no one left sewing needles in them.
Yeah, always feel them first for things like that.
Always check with your hands before your head. That's just for safety. This. And let's see, that brings me to reasons we check by hand for safety. These are cross sections of arrows. We have closed cell foam wrapped around a PVC base, and these are always, if I get the right one, penny capped, just like that. Now you can't see a penny cap inside an arrow when it's completely closed off, which is another reason why we check by hand. And I can pass these around. They are required to have open cell foam on the striking surface, so when you see a full arrow, it'll be covered like this. And this open cell foam is what will strike a body part, which includes the face, so it has to have cushion that spreads out. And I can pass these around so y'all can look at them. And the reason we check by hand for things like the penny cap, and for things like we will check an arrow for twist. So if an arrow needs to be secured in Belegarth, it needs to have 2 points of security. So one of the things we do is tape them. Tape them and secure them to the base so that they don't twist. Now, when we test, like I said, you want to check with your hand before you check with your eye, because we can't see if there's a penny cap in them. And there's one way to find out the hard way if there's no penny cap.
So that's a no-no. Always remove your live heads before building an arrow. But this is why we take safety seriously. Like, you check first.
We check by hand, we check thoroughly. Because the moment I do this, you can't see that.
And if there's no penny, and there's a live arrowhead, and you go like this, you boop yourself. In a bad way.
Once an arrow is secured to the base, we also require a draw stop. This is a 1/4 of an inch thickness at an arrow at the 28-inch mark. In Belegarth, and especially at Demarion, we specify from the inside of the nock where the arrow string or the bowstring rests to the draw stop can be no greater than 28 inches. If you have it 27 inches, if you have it 15 inches, that's fine. But the moment you hit 28 and a quarter, no, too much. Because this is the only weapon that is a real-life weapon on our field. I can take that little foam arrowhead off, take my bow and this arrow, and go hunt a deer with it. That didn't take long. You can't do that with a spear, with a foam spear. You just upset the deer. It'd be funny, but you upset it. So the reason we have this many precautions with arrows is because these are real weapons, and they have to be safe in anyone's hand. They have to be safe in my hands, in Mint's hands, in Talon's hands. And so the safest that we can do is set a limit on the length of the arrow, maximum length, and the maximum poundage of the bow. So, in Belegarth, you are allowed at most a recurve bow. You cannot have compound bows with the wheelie gigs or the extra knots and stabilizers that you see in the Olympics. That's too much stuff. Too many things protruding, too many things that alter the ability of the arrows and the safety of the person shooting. So when you take a 28-inch arrow, I'm going to pretend measure that this arrow was perfectly 28 inches. In real weapons check, you will do this correctly, because I say so. You'll see a lot of these instruments going around. This is a bow tester. This is a spring-loaded, very simple contraption that will measure the poundage of the bow. So when I pull this back, I'm going to use just this bow tester to pull the string back to the draw stop right there. So I know at 28 inches, this bow pulls at 40 pounds, so it fails. I'll take questions in a moment. The bows themselves are very simple, but we do check for the strength of the bow itself. We don't want to have anyone with huge cracks in the riser here or already broken limbs. This is why it is required that you also string your own bow. Because if there's a tricky way that you string your bow that we don't know about, I don't want to break your bow. I don't want to find out the hard way that you paid $500 for a bow that only strings like this. So yeah, bows and arrows will go through very rigorous testing for safety on the field because safety takes precedence over realism. Yes, I could probably win most of the field if I took that live arrowhead on the field, but I wouldn't last very long either. All right, Mint, you had a question?
So, and trust me, I know the answer to this, it's just for video. Why would you not want to measure an arrow with a table?
Since I do not have a measuring tape on me right now, it is it's kind of hard for me to force this rule while I am unprepared for said rule. But tables and superfluous forms of measurement, such as a line on a table, a line on a plank, they're very inaccurate, especially if they're done with a piece of tape. Is it the 28 inches measured on one side of the tape or the other side of the tape? And duct tape is 2 inches wide, so that leaves a really huge variance. Lines on the table, those can also be inaccurate depending on if it's a picnic table. Is it warped? Is the table, does it have a sharp 90-degree angle that you're measuring from, or does it have a curved one, which will then cause a sliding effect? I am very much a stickler, and that is a hill I will die on, that you should use a measuring tape because it literally has numbers on it that tells you how long this arrow is. And if you allow an arrow that is not safe, such as one that measures longer than 28 inches, to go onto the field, the moment an archer pulls back further than 28 inches, they are increasing the bow strength by pounds per inch. So what they might be pulling at 29 inches at 35 pounds could be 40 to 42 pounds of pressure. If that goes and hits someone in the face from precisely 15 feet away, I don't think we're gonna be friends in 5 seconds. One way to find out. Yes.
If I make my arrows and I get the kind that have the tips on them, as long as I put a penny, is it okay to have a tip in there still?
No, it is not. And the reason for that is the penny is there as a perpendicular point to spread the pressure outward. If you have a live arrowhead in there, not only can it go through said penny, and you won't know that it has gone through the penny or the padding until it hits someone, it is still a dangerous live arrowhead. It creates a single pressure point rather than spreading it out across the penny and therefore through the closed and open cell phones. Yes.
How do you get the pointy part out?
It actually improves. So these are replaceable. They're just like sewing needles in that they will dull down after a while, and hunters like to have sharp things. A majority of arrows, especially hunting arrows, have, I don't know if you can see it, but a screw tip inside with threading, so you can screw in things like weights, little centimeter long cylinders into your arrow to make it heavier. These themselves, as well as other little add-ons and doodads. So these unscrew really easily, and a lot of hunters will, if arrow shafts can break a lot, so very few people want to do things like glue these in. So they're going to keep these separated so that all parts are replaceable. You can just remove this very easily and then put your arrowhead on, and you're far more safer than if you kept this in. Yes?
What's the max poundage of a bow?
The max poundage of a bow is 35 pounds at 28-inch draw. Any other questions? Yes.
Yes. When measuring an arrow, is it from the draw stop to the nock? Is that what it's called?
Yes. When you measure the length of an arrow, you are measuring from the inside of the nock right here, where the string would be.
Yeah.
This inside point, all down the length of the shaft to the draw stop here.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? All right. Next up will be blues and shields.
Arshank, yay!
So hey everyone, I'm Squire Davlon. I'm going to be going over blues and shields today. Just going over basic weapons check and everything for them. So first thing, got a collection here. Blues can be made from varieties. But first thing, when I pick one up, I'm going to not only tell what type of weapon it is, I'm also always going to check for tape indicators. On blue weapons, Belegarth no longer requires a blue marking. It is assumed that any weapon without a marking is a blue. But I am also going to check always, though, for instance in this case, the green marking, so I know that this is both a blue and green stabbing weapon. And I always want to make sure I check for that, because a lot of them, pick them up, you see the same weapon all the time. I know, hey, I've used this weapon, I can hit with it and I can stab with it, and maybe it's failed stab, so it's no longer green or no longer stab legal. But I always want to check, make sure I check that as the first thing I do, so I know how I can go about checking this weapon. So basic blue varieties, you have basically some form of edge or bat / omnate of some sort. So first thing when I do when I check it, I go through my templating. So on the pommel, the 2-inch hole, check, make sure it doesn't go through my template. On the top then, make sure it doesn't go through. I put this down, just set it on it. That is the 2.5-inch hole. On a weapon, sword, if it is a semicircular tip, for this check, one, you can check for that, but if it's semicircular, I can check to see if it's a 3-inch diameter across here, and if it is, then that also passes for those, even if it does go through the template. So most things do, template it, make sure pommel, everything's good. If, for instance, most weapons when you pick them up, you can kind of tell they're going to be within the range of, like, for instance, how long or short the weapon is. So for blues, the max length 48 inches, and it becomes a red. So if I pick it up and it looks like it's really like extra long, it could be a red. I can check it, measure it, but most of the time you're usually gonna find something 36, 38 lower. But so if, for instance, I have a weapon that is kind of on the range, so one of the other rules is on minimum padding is 12 inches of continuous padding on any weapon. So for instance, on this one, this is very close. This is legal in Dag, but not legal in Bell, because this is 11 inches of padding. So for something like this, when I pick it up, I would want to check it against the measuring tape to make sure I had the minimum width of padding. Same thing, like say if I pick up a big, really long blue, I'm going to say, okay, I need to check to make sure that's not a red. So, kind of once I've gone through the templating process, so I've checked the pommel, like the top, measured it if I need to. Another thing to also check, again, a lot of them you'll see them on maybe half bats and stuff, but also say the weapon needs to have 2/3 padding, or minimum, I believe, 18 inches of maximum of 18 inches of handle. Again, that's always, if you have questions, make sure you have Book of War either on your phone or out. That way, if it is something where you don't know, it's 18, 12, whatever, figure it out, check, and move on. So, I'm going through the weapon check process on a sword or a bat. Already done templating and everything. I start with the pommel. Mainly, I'm just checking, make sure it's connected. It can be loose. You have a lot of people, especially if they fight with the pommel, it's very loose, but as long as you can't get to the core, or can't feel the core, and it's not coming off, you're still good. I'm also going to check to make sure I can't feel anything on the other end, so in case it punch through that, I'm using basically, I'm not digging in, I'm going to use my finger pads, check, okay, can't feel that. Check, make sure handle and everything's good, not feeling any core through it, get to the padding. Going to do a kind of feel check up, looking for divots or anything that makes like, it could be a weakness or a break in the foam. Just check to see if there's anything like that. Also going to make sure it's kind of secure, so I'm not going to like crank on it, but I'm going to try and check to see if it is kind of moving any, either, again, kind of twist or pull. Again, as long as it's secure, I'm not trying to crank it to try and move it, I'm just checking to see if there's any movement at all. Never, you do not want to break the weapon touching it, or purposely break the weapon when you touch it. So same thing, I finish peeling up the blade, get to the top, again, go check, okay, because I know this is green, stabbing. Again, fingers trying to see, okay, not feeling core poking through or anything like that. So that's kind of basically the first leg glance. So moving on to hit test. Usually you can always hit against another person, across the back, but with blues, the short nap, you can usually do it yourself. So what I'm going to do for blues, just going to hit myself in the leg, just kind of rotate, make sure I'm getting a good check on all the sides. And I'm trying to feel especially if I feel anything of core or excessive hardness or anything, or lasting pain. Feels good, good. Again, green then. Again, you can stab on another person on the back. You're also single checking. Either people will do it against the thighs, check, or into the stomach or chest. A lot of people, depending upon how they do it. So again, I'm kind of forcing it in as a good stab, and I'm seeing, is it too hard? Am I feeling core, or is it too hard of a stab? So that's the basics of a normal bat. You would do the same thing with the sword. Again, you feel the test. The only thing would be is, since this isn't striking surface, the flat of the blade, you don't have to check on it. You would want to check to make sure, for instance, it's not separating this way when you do a test through. So you kind of feel those ridges to make sure that like the outer layer of foam isn't separating, because that could indicate that there could be a failure problem, or something that it's becoming a failure, and you can let them know, hey, you might want to fix this, everything. So again, I would do the same thing, along with the sword, instead of going kind of twisting as I go when I check my leg. I just go against one side, good, flip it, good on the other, stab check. So that's the basics on most blues you'll find, as far as bats, axes, and other stuff like hammers. With those ones, you'll test the striking surface basically the same. There is a little bit different because they have incidental and half padding, similar to that another common one, Flail. So a couple differences with the Flail. One, max flail length, 40 inches, so we would want to, if it looks like it's going to be close, measure. And then also, we'll do standard templating on the bottom, 2-inch hole, good. Then on the top, flails are very different in that I would want to measure the head. It needs to be 4 inches across or 4 inches around on 2 axes. So that would be around this or around that. I need to have 2 measurements of 4-inch circumference. Then after that, on template, checking the flail length. For instance, we want to check from the bottom of the head to the shaft where it connects, 6 inches. Like so, for instance, in this case, this one slightly fails as there is a little bit of more. So this is greater than 6 inches, so this would fail. That's the one, say, we'll check if you have a standard template, the fall side is usually 6 inches. I think dollar is the other good example people use when you check it. Though continuing on with the flail, this probably may have a similar thing. Flail heads have the dingleberries, and you can have no more than 1.5 inches of space in the chain that's not covered. So for instance, this one may be a little bit, same thing. If it's template, they have a notch for it. You can kind of check where this bag is stretched, means that, yeah, you would also need another dingle. That'd be right there. You're right about, probably would use another dingleberry for this one as well, on chain length. So again, so go through, check the head, circumference, everything, check the chain, check the space between, or the extra chain that's not covered, check the half, or you didn't have half padding, and then incidental or courtesy padding. So we'll check that. Again, feel the padding, make sure there's no breaks, not feeling poor. Once I do all that check, again, pommel, check that, not coming off. So for hit testing flails, couple, again, always can do it with a partner, but if you're doing it by yourself, 2 thumbs of thought, take it in front. I'm going to basically hit myself in the shoulder with the half pad, and that will have the ball hit my back, and I'll test that, see how hard that's hitting. So that way we can check, see, A, make sure the half's enough, and make sure the ball's not like solid rock. Or seeing other people, they'll do it across the back and side, check it that way. Both ways can be used to check for the hit if you're by yourself, or if you're doing the check by yourself. For instance, a lot of people will check and you're trying to get through stuff. But that is the basics on flails. And so is there any questions or any of the other weapons? There are other nuances, like say we have bats and axes and all that, but the same stuff you will see at weapons check for blues will be maces and hammers, axes and all that. Swords, bats, flails.
If a sword like has a cross guard or something like that, how do I, like, what would I use to test that?
If there was a cross guard, you would want to, so for instance, if I had, so it had a cross guard, main thing is a checking, is that the guard can't be, has to have some padding on it. It has to be padded. So I would do, similar to a pommel check, I'd be feeling that. And I'd also be doing, to make sure that it doesn't, like, it still has to pass templating. So say this had a flat cross guard, I need to put my pommel, basically the same size, 2-inch hole, to make sure that that does not go through. So there's nothing in there protruding, so that if you're tangled up and you're punching out, you don't get a cross guard to the eye or something like that.
I have an Amtgard sword that's really cool and I like it, and I've never played Belegarth. Can I just bring my Amtgard sword and play?
Amp Guard has slightly different rules. While a lot of stuff can pass, there is one it would have to pass the standard everything else. Amp Guard, a big difference though was weight. So for instance, say for Bell, any weapon over 24 inches has to have a 12 ounce minimum. So you would check that, and you'd have to weigh the sword again. A lot of those with smaller swords, you check, say, okay, if it's really light, is it over 24 inches? So I would check that, and then if it's under 24 inches, well, then it's below the minimum length requirement. Ben?
Is there a maximum size for if you have the guards that we were talking about previously? Is there a maximum size of that?
I don't believe that. Again, that would be something I'd have to pull out, look more for. So I make sure I double check on that. But no, for the most part, I believe the answer would be no. I would double check though. It would be one that is something that they could come into rule like if I believe that they are a safety concern, then it could be something to fail for that. If there's something I could say, there is if that's your blade and your cross guards are like that, or like this on either side, yeah, there's a good chance you're going to end up hitting someone with a cross guard as opposed to your blade. So, but overall the size, for the most part, there's not a limit, but it would be something you would check. Or you could look at how might things occur with it.
What is the minimum amount of padding, or the minimum length of padding that must be on it, incidental padding that has to be on the blade?
That is basically and I have to check the exact ruling, but it would be up to the maximum handle length, which I believe is one third of the weapon, or 18 inches, I believe.
That's
for blue.
for red.
Oh, that's red. Okay, 12 inches for blue. Sorry.
12 inches or 1/3 the weapon still.
Yeah. Again, that's why. If I'm in question, if you're in question doing check, always have the Book of War ready. Just double check it. But yeah.
Yes. 6 inches.
Yeah, I was about to say, you only have to have 6 inches back.
Yeah. No. So as far as the flail, yeah. Half padding though, it's only 6.
Yeah.
So you just basically double it with the template. Check that. No. Any other questions?
Davlon!
So moving on to shields. Hopefully, say shields, basic variety. You have strap shields, punch shields, and full on body strap shields. So, so hand straps, straps to an arm or body, and just regular hold in the hand punch shields. All of them are pretty much checked the same way. Main thing looking for is when I go test a shield. One thing, most of these shields are 28 inches or less. However, there is, if you get a really big shield, for sizing, kind of the templating for shields, is you can't really test it because it depends upon who is wielding it. But normally a shield can only be so high. And it's based upon the person who's wielding it. They have to basically only cover 2/3 body basically. But you can't really. Yeah. But if it was, so can't really check that, but we can check width, 36-inch max width on a shield, and that is across the curvature of the face. So if a shield, this is 20-inch round, so it's 20 inches across. But if it was an extra wide shield, I'd have to look for I'd have to check and measure again, templating 36 inches across the width. As far as when I check them, main thing I'm checking on shields, I'm gonna do a feel check across the face, making sure there's nothing again, kind of the pins or anything hard, sharp that someone may feel across the face, making sure it's solid and that's not bending. Especially most shields have a core, but a lot more shields will go coreless, so it's all foam instead. So core. Okay.
All right.
We got
All right.
Hey, never mind. No, it's all right. We got bodies.
Ready?
I think we can take one.
3,
Fried now.
2, 1.
Sorry about the break, guys. So during the break, was corrected. As far as height of the shield, it's 18 inches. Has to be exposed to the person wielding the shield, counting foot on ground. Not, I was mistaken when I said two-thirds. But yeah, 18 inches on the height. But that's not something you can really check when you do a weapons check, because it could be someone my height, someone 2 feet higher, or 2 feet taller, 2 feet shorter, wielding it. You don't know. So that'd be more of a Hale's call in the field. But yeah. So like I say, main thing is we have cord and uncored shields. Cores, pretty solid shields. It's a flat, solid piece of wood, plastic, or something. So we don't have to worry much about bends or anything. So it's going to be pretty stable. Like when I check it, it's not going to like fold in half on me. Something like if it does, that means it's going to be a bit of a crack in the core probably, or something else. Another issue of that nature. Foam shields, full foam. Some people, I would say, depending upon the type of foam, it could be too weak of a foam, and you do want to check for that. Make sure shouldn't be folding. Most full foams, though, they're not going to fold.
No tacos.
Yes,
on the field.
It's not going to taco on the field. But when I check a shield, I said I've done my field test. So nothing sharp, all the padding all across. Say I'm then going to check, kind of go circumference just to see. Say with a cord shield, hitting through as I go, all around. Mainly what I'm feeling is make sure, one, that this pad that's covering the edge of the core is in place and not folding off or breaking off. So that's what I'm going through, and I'm just feeling for anything to make sure that there's no core that can be felt, and that this is secure. So that's the basics with the cord shield. Checking that and that. When I go to the other side, I'm checking, make sure the straps are secure. So they're not going to like come and pull off or anything like that. And there's no like breaks or obvious breaks or anything on the shield itself with the foam. So again, just because it didn't fold when I hit it, it's hopefully not going to like kind of come off. I want to check, make sure it's not going to do that. As far as shields with covers, shields themselves don't need to have covers, they're supposed to. But if they don't, as long as it's all pad, you're good. You can't have any tape or anything like that. Like duct tape or anything. So let's see, when I'm doing a core, check the face, sides, hit check, make sure the straps are good. That's it. That's about it. You'll hit the core. Or for a cord shield. For a punch shield or full foam, I am basically, again, face check, make sure nothing's sharp, nothing in, everything's solid. Making sure the handle is secure like the straps, and it's not going to come out if it gets hit or if it gets jerked around. And also with punch shields, I'm checking to make sure that the middle, where the handle goes, has enough padding so that if I push out, I'm not going to feel my hand through it and end up like punching someone or something like that. So, like that, feels good. So that's about it for full foam punch shield. For just regular body straps, again, usually smaller, but same thing as punch or other shields. Checking, nothing sharp, nothing's going to dig in or poke out, it's not going to taco, and checking to make sure straps are good and secure. And then also, we can find cord strap shields. So you would do the same thing with these as you would a normal cord held shield, where I'm looking for edges, make sure nothing's going to taco or anything. Straps are secure, and I'm not going to feel core anywhere around the edge. And also making sure the points are nice and soft and not going to hurt anyone. So that's about it for shields. Any questions?
Shield seems simple.
Oh, for height, is that with non-round shields?
That is all shields.
Okay.
On height. So it's like I say, you see them a lot more on like kind of the really tall tower shields. May be more likely to have that issue. But you could have like a really big round shield being picked, like a max width round shield. Don't know anyone that would have it, but someone could.
That would be
Max width round.
so ridiculous.
But yeah, it's you only see one round, but a lot of the other ones you can't. I mean, it's not impossible, but it is one of those, again, you're just looking for 18-inch. And again, that's something on the field you'll notice that a lot more with hit, and that'll be a hail, it's called. That's something that we'll do at check. Any other questions? Okay, cool.
Davlon, woo!
I'm going to turn it over then to Tandarr for reds and pulls.
Yeah. All right, I'm Squire Tandarr, and we're going to be talking about reds and greens. Let's start with reds. Pretty much anything that kind of resembles a blue, but it's over 48 inches, has a blade. Same kind of test. Check the template at the top, the 2.5-inch template. Make sure it doesn't go through by just resting it there. Or if it is semicircular, you can also check the 1.5 inch and make sure that it's about halfway across. So you'd have a 3-inch diameter, which I believe this side actually is as well. There you go. Check the pommel, same way. We would a blue, just make sure it doesn't fall through. Give it a twist around, make sure it doesn't twist, plunge, no core, nice and soft. Right. On reds, your maximum handle length is 1/3 of the weapon or 18 inches, whichever is greater. Usually with these size, it ends up being 1/3 the weapon. And your blade still has to have the 12 inches of continuous foam. If you don't have it bladed all the way to the handle, you would need, I believe it's 12 inches of courtesy padding. No, 12 inches of incidental padding, and then you can have courtesy padding the rest of the way to the handle. Or if the incidental padding goes straight to the handle, that's all you would need. With these, same way like the blues, give them a feel up the blade, make sure there's no breaks, no like weird soft spots, know whether it's gonna go straight to core. If it's green, like this one is, give it a little push up top, make sure it's soft, make sure you're not feeling core, preferably not like wiggling side to side too much. All right. And the big thing with reds, you cannot test them by yourself. You need help, hopefully from the person that dropped a red off earlier. So, yeah, all right, we have a volunteer. Let me push this stuff out of the way a little bit. Okay. So, with reds, choose whichever hand you enjoy swinging with. Now, this one is bladed. So with the blades, we have to test both sides. If you have an Omni, which I'll show actually here in a minute, I'll show you what we do with those. So with the blade, we do a light, medium, and a hard hit. So a light, kind of just basic, throw a little bit into it. Medium, put a little bit of hip, and always make sure the person you're testing on is giving you a nod or saying yes to make sure it doesn't hurt. Give them time to answer you. Now for a hard, bring back, give them a really good slap. Now, since this one is bladed, I'm going to turn it around to the other side, and you can ask them, would you like to go straight to hard? If they say yes, good. If not, then you start light, medium, hard again. But always get their opinion first, because you don't want to hurt anybody. Good? Okay. Now this one is green. So, you've already checked the tip. Choose a spot. You generally move spots, but a light, just a simple one-handed stab. All right. Medium, put a little bit more into it, both hands. Good. All right. Hard, both hands, and put some body weight behind it. And don't miss. He's a small dude, so I'm also trying not to hit him right in the spine. Good? Awesome. So then this weapon would pass. All right. And all of that pretty well translates to our bigger pole weapons as well. This is an 8-footer. So you go through all the same steps. Check the blade for template. Check the pommel for template. Make sure that pommel's not going anywhere and you're not feeling core. Again, 1/3 of the overall weapon can be handle. More than 12 inches of blade, give it a feel. And this is definitely green, so check the tip. Give it a little push in, no core, no breakdown. All right. And then make sure you have your incidental padding to the handle. And you can give that a feel as well. Make sure there's no breaks, no going straight to core. We want everyone to be safe. We don't want anybody getting hurt. All right. And these, the swing test is the same way, but because it's Omni, come here, Tycho.
Give you more real estate.
Yeah, right? Thank you. All right. Now, same idea, but because it's Omni, between each one, we're going to turn it about 1/3 each time so that each part of the weapon hits during one of the tests. So, light.
Good.
Medium.
Good.
Hard.
Good.
Cool. And then, so you don't have to do the other side of the blade because you rotated it as you were going. Check the stab tip the same way as we did on the other red. Light.
Good.
Medium.
Good.
Hard.
Good.
Cool. So that would pass. All right. So that's our red weapons. They come in all shapes and sizes above 48 inches, but they're all pretty well tested the same way. Pretty similar to blues, just a lot bigger, and you need a helper to take the hits because you can't swing 8 feet on yourself unless you're some kind of monster, but who knows. All right, spears and daggers. Sadly, we don't have a dagger, but this is just a big dagger, so we can kind of explain it here. Green only weapons, class 3? Class 3. All right, so you check the pommel, just like you would on a red, a blue, everything else. Check template, make sure no core, it's not going anywhere. Check the head size, template. This one's definitely big, but we have some now that are low pro, that are really close, so just make sure they don't pass through the template. Give it a press, make sure there's no core, nothing weird going on, and you can kind of feel around the size and make sure it's not broken down. Go through the incidental padding, and then the courtesy padding. Cool. Now with greens, 2/3 of the weapon can be handled, as you see here. This is for spears, this is for daggers, anything. So daggers, you might see a handle with just like a piercing tip on top. And that's fine as long as the handle's 2/3 of the weapon. And with these, there's no weight limit. I didn't mention that before. Reds have to be over 24 ounces. Greens, no weight limit. This one's probably like 24 to 30, somewhere in there. But there are some on carbon fiber that, you know, weigh maybe 20 or less. Yeah, Talon's over here, that's one-handing crazy. But, yeah, all right. Freaky. I mean, it's band shop, it'll do that. All right, and with these, you test the same way you would on a red. Just green though. Do never swing a green only weapon to somebody. So just light.
Good.
Medium.
Good.
Hard.
Good.
Good? We didn't really talk about flex, did we? Part of that's on me. So weapons can't flex more than 45 degrees. So for spears, you'll generally shake them, and that's not flexing very much. But if it were hitting, you know, down here, you would want to get some people to watch and just make sure it's not going past that point, because if it is, you don't want it to risk breaking while stabbing somebody or being able to like whip around out on the field. For reds, give them a good shake. This one's not really going anywhere. If one were to look a little weird, like it might be going beyond that point, it's dangerous, it needs to be extra checked, you can bring out a cord shield. Always cord. Nice wood, it's gonna be sturdy, and have someone hold it on the side, and you want to take it and hit it at the lowest point of the blade, and just make sure that blade isn't going more than 45 degrees. And if it does, that would cause the weapon to fail. If not, you're good, it would pass. Let's see. Is there anything I forgot that y'all can think of? Question?
Minimum amount of incidental padding on a spear.
On a spear?
Yes.
So if the handle can be 2/3 of the weapon, the rest of the weapon has to be foamed up. So there's 1/3 of the weapon at that point.
It doesn't have the same requirements.
I think he's talking about the 6 inches of.
Oh, up here?
No,
No,
below that, the black.
Yes, the black
It's all
padding.
incidental.
The black.
The black padding?
Yeah.
It's either part of the
The
cannon.
extra thickness there, is it the same as Flail's, the 6 inch? Yeah. I
No.
thought it.
Part of the design.
Yeah, this was just designed that way, but there's really not a lot of extra requirements.
I didn't
It just
think
has
there
to be
was.
padded in general.
Okay.
Cause like,
It was like the
Talon,
geek
do you
sticks.
mind? Thank you. Sorry, but like you can see this spear right here, perfectly legal, but after the head, it's just the same foam all the way down.
Gotcha.
So you don't need like big, thick foam just in case. That was just a style design. Got ready for the...
Yay, Tandarr!
Alright. And during this class, you know,
We are members of Vorshen unit, Squire, you pretty today. We know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
we are Vorshen. Bum ba dum bum 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 bum.
A little slow on the uptake there,